something like that, yeah.
Okay, now somebody get the door.
I've got it.
All right, we're gonna get going there. All right, we're gonna get started there, and Ms. McKay is gonna get settled, and welcome, Ms. McKay. Welcome. Good evening. Welcome to the January 22nd Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. To my left is Mr. Carter Falk, who is the Deputy Plan Manager for the City of Nashua. Across from me, I have Mr. Jay Minkara, Mr. Steve Lionel, Mr. Robert Shaw, Mr. Jack Currier, who's our Vice Chair, Ms. Estafia Boris, Ms. Mariella McKay, our Secretary, and I'm J.P. Boucher, your Chair. This meeting is recorded by a written transcript, and is also video recorded. We'd ask that you direct all testimony into the microphone and only one person speak at a time, please. If you don't have a copy of tonight's agenda, it's in the back on the tables there. Tonight we'll be hearing requests for deviations from the Nashua Zoning Code in the form of special exceptions and variances. I'll go over each of those. A special exception is a request that seeks permission to do something that the zoning ordinance permits only under special circumstances. The 5 criteria required for this board to grant a request for a special exception are: the requested use must be listed in the table of use regulations as a special exception. 2, the requested use will not create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. 3, the requested use will not overload any public water, drainage, or sewer system, or any other municipal system such that other areas of the city will be subjected to the hazards affecting health, safety, or general welfare. 4, any special regulations for the use set forth in other sections of the zoning ordinance are fulfilled. And 5, the requested use will not impair the integrity or character of the district of adjoining zones, nor be detrimental to the health or welfare of the residents of Nashua. A variance is a request that seeks permission to do something that the ordinance does not permit. The 5 criteria that need to be established to approve a variance are: the variance will not be contrary to public interest. 2, the spirit of the ordinance is observed. 3, substantial justice is done. 4, the values of surrounding properties are not diminished. And 5, literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. Per the City of Nashua zoning bylaws, a minimum of 3 or more affirmative votes are required to approve any application. Also, this board will hear all scheduled cases as long as a quorum of 3 voting members are present at this meeting. We have a quorum tonight. Any citizen has the right to contest the decision that this board makes. Should we make a decision that you believe is an error, you have the right to request a rehearing. A written rehearing request must be received through Mr. Falk in the City of Nashua Planning Department within 30 days from the day after a decision was made. Should this board not grant a rehearing request, you can file an appeal directly to the New Hampshire Superior Court. You can contact Mr. Falk for more information on that. Per our approved Zoning Board of Adjustment bylaws, the review and decision of each application occurs in 2 parts. The first part of tonight's meeting is called a public hearing. This is where the applicant and the citizens address this board and speak to the merits of this case. The order of testimony is as follows. The applicant will have 15 minutes to present their case. Then those in favor will have a limit of 5 minutes to testify. Then those in opposition or with questions will have a limit of 5 minutes each to testify. Then the applicant then comes back and has 5 minutes to speak in rebuttal. And then finally, a representative and only one person of those in opposition or with questions will have 5 minutes to speak in rebuttal. Again, we ask that you direct all testimony to the board and not to the audience. If you have a question about an application, they have to be directed to the board and we'll get them answered for you. The second part of tonight's meeting is called the public meeting. This is where the board debates the merits of this case amongst ourselves. Please note that during the public meeting, there is no testimony allowed from the audience. We'd ask that you silence your cell phones, and if you need to have a conversation, we'd ask that you feel free to step out in the hall to do so. Mr. Falk, any changes to tonight's agenda?
Yes, there is. The third case that was at 7 Hawthorne Avenue has been withdrawn.
Anybody here for that case? Okay, good. All right, so we'll get started. First of all, just to point out, there are 7 members sitting here. Ms. Boris and Mr. J. Minkara are alternate members. They will participate in all our deliberations in the public hearing and the public meeting. If any of the full-time members recuse themselves, then we will call upon them to vote in their place. So with that, any questions from the audience at this point? Okay, so we're going to call the first case, which is Linda Lancaster of 18.
Excuse me, JP, which of, no, sorry, I'm confused. Never mind. I was going to say about which alternate is voting, but of course they're
We're all
not voting
here,
because
yeah.
we're all here.
Yeah,
Yes, I'm not all here tonight.
that's okay. Thank you. So
Very good. Carry
I'm
on.
going to call the first case, which is owner Linda Lancaster. The address is 18 Smithfield Terrace. The description is Linda Lancaster, owner of 18 Smithfield Terrace, sheet 56, lot 138, requesting the following. 1, a special exception from the Land Use Code, section 19-15, table 15-1, number 3, to construct an accessory in-law dwelling unit in the 2nd floor of an existing house. And 2, variance from the Land Use Code, section 19-32, to exceed in size of accessory dwelling unit, 750 square feet allowed, 850 square feet proposed. It's in the RA zoning district. Welcome, and can we have your name and address for the record, please?
Good evening. My name is Linda Lancaster, and I live at 18 Smithfield Terrace. And the ADU I'm asking for, basically, I would like to stay in my house for the rest of my life. I'm looking at retirement and thinking about, you know, how I stay in my house. So what I was looking at was turning the 2nd floor of my house, which is, you know, about 845 square feet. It's under 750 if I close one of the doors and lock one of the doors, but I asked for the variance because the room that could be closed to make it 750 square feet, there's no way I could access it, you know, without going through, you know, the ADU. So basically, I've been trying to anticipate, you know, I'm in good relations with my neighbors. I'd like to stay in good relations with my neighbors. So one of the things I'm going to do is for the ADU, I have a 2-car garage. I'm going to use half the garage for the ADU so that there will be 2 spaces, 1 space inside the garage and 1 space in the driveway behind it, so that, you know, we won't typically have cars parking in the street, because in our neighborhood, we typically don't have cars parking in the street. Almost all the work is interior, except for an exterior entrance to the 2nd floor and a shed where I want to put you know, the trash receptacles and my snow blower, and a small deck, and that's all on the right-hand side of the property facing, you know, the front of the house. So I've added diagrams there which shows the existing 1st floor and the proposed you know, the proposed 1st floor, existing 2nd floor, proposed 2nd floor. And if you had any questions about my drawings or that, I don't know whether you can ask me that now or whether you have to, or whether you're allowed to ask questions now, so.
We are.
Or I just talk.
Mr. Lionel.
It's wonderful that you want to stay in your house. I want to do the same thing to mine. What I didn't hear you say was how creating an ADU would enable you to do that.
Well, I'm looking at it in a couple of different ways. One of which is, in the long term, I'm thinking if I had to have a caretaker up there, or as my younger sister gets older, she might stay up there with me. But the immediate use would be as, you know, renting the ADU to help supplement once I'm on a fixed income.
Okay, my second question relates to the stairway that you're putting outside. And this is the first ADU request I've seen that involves an exterior stairway, which one generally associates with multifamily or apartment buildings?
Unfortunately, this is the only place, there's the 9 criteria, and I went through the 9 criteria for an ADU. And this is the only place I can put the stairwell with, within the setbacks, and it can't be on the front. I have been talking to my neighbors about landscaping to kind of like, I already have, you know, trees and such that kind of block the view of that second-story stairwell. I'm going to make the stairwell out of the same materials that I use on my deck, both front and back, which is Trex and, you know, the vinyl. So it will be consistent with the look and feel of the house as it exists now. Because it is on the second floor, unfortunately, I, at some place, have to have a second-story stairwell to get up there.
Thank you.
Mr. McCara?
What's the square footage of the first floor residence?
It's 16-something, close to 1,700, plus I have a full basement, which is probably another 1,000 square feet.
Are you all set, Mr. McCara?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Correa?
When I was looking at the plans, I guess I'm missing where that outside staircase is, so maybe somebody could point that out. Okay, so the staircase internally, that's not going to service both units?
No, I'm going to partition the wall there and put an interior door, which I'm required to do for the ADU. You know, that, to use that stairwell would require coming through my front door and into the front, you know, the first floor of the house.
I guess, was there any thought of having the staircase go from inside the garage to the second unit?
I did look at that, and I talked with it, I talked about it with one of the contractors I talked to, and he felt there wasn't enough space in there to get the appropriate stair, the dimensions that the stairs have to be. It would basically mean that I would have to, probably about the only way I could do that, put the stairwell in the garage, would be to use the whole, at least half of one of the bays of the garage, which would mean that I couldn't do what I wanted to do, which was give the ADU one of the garage spaces and the driveway behind so that nobody's parking on the street.
So again, the proposed staircase is on the right side of the house?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Ma'am, just a point of clarification. For the ADU, having a family member there or anybody there to help with your future needs is all good. We can't consider any financial gains from that, so that's not something that we can or would consider, just so you know. It's
In your
not-
deliberations?
Right, yeah, it's, we all have our own challenges but a financial challenge that an applicant may have, it's not something that we could consider. Unfortunately, that's not what this was deemed for, okay?
Okay.
So just to let you know.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no disrespect. I kind of read through the things that, New Hampshire had sent out, and one of the things was in terms of people that are getting older and having affordable housing and that. And so that's why I mention it, because I thought it fit in with
Yeah,
that.
no, I think it's more geared to, well, obviously, keeping you in the home longer. But,
Yep.
there is a line there, and I just wanted to point it out.
Okay,
But
that's fine.
no, there's no issue here, just kind of point
Okay.
that out. Mr. Correa?
I guess just a couple more things. So this, it says Berkeley Floor Plan A. Is this actually your structure, or is that something?
What it was is when, Edgestone was built, Edgestone built these in 2002. They built them all at the same time, and they had two different floor plans. And that's my floor plan, yes.
Okay. And just another question on the proposed staircase, is that proposed to be covered, enclosed, open?
I had not planned on it being enclosed. And we certainly, I mean, I'm certainly willing to, if, you know, we had talked about doing some trellises or things, and if that, you know, again, it wasn't something I was planning at this time.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Shaw.
And just one more thing on the stairwell, that outside stairwell. Is the landing of the stairs at the ground, is that going to be towards the rear of the property or towards the front of the property?
So you're going to start the stairs probably around the middle of the property and then towards the back of the property. So the back of the house, not the property, but.
I guess when you're looking at the front of the house, and the stairs are going to be here on the very right-hand side of the house, just kind of past, I guess, make sure, I'm just trying to,
You're
right
gonna-
right past the garage.
Yeah.
So would you see the bottom steps of the stairs facing towards you?
Right now, I have a big evergreen that would kind of, as somebody was walking by on the street,
the
would kind of
trace.
block the view, but you would, you know.
Yeah,
it-
no, I guess it's not so much seeing, I guess I'm just trying to make sure, do the stairs come down? The stairs look like they're gonna come down to the back of the property, because I see the
Oh,
entrance.
they go up. So if the house is right here, okay, so the house is right here, the stairs will start here
Yeah.
and come up to the second floor.
I realize now, I think I was looking at, I don't know if it's probably cabinets or whatever in the proposed kitchen. I was seeing that as some sort of interior,
So you're walking up towards the
yeah,
back of the house.
which is
as
what
you
I
walk
would have
up.
thought, but then I got confused looking at the drawing, so,
Okay.
okay, I understand now, thank you.
Good?
Yep.
Any other questions for the applicant? So I just, you saw the special conditions, right, for the,
The other 9 conditions?
right? You read through them thoroughly?
I think so, yeah.
All right. What I'd like to do is just kind of really go over that real quick with you. Do you have those in front of you? And
Hang on.
all I'll be looking for, and we know that there is you know, you're also looking for an exception on the square footage, but we're gonna go one by one, and then we'll get an affirmative, a yes or no from you for the record.
Sure.
So this is the accessory dwelling unit, special conditions. So the first one is the accessory dwelling unit shall be clearly incidental, subordinate in extent, use, and purpose to the primary structure does not exceed 750 square feet.
Yep.
So,
And-
except for the 750 square feet, you agree with that, right?
Yes, as Mr. Minkara asked, you know, the main floor is almost 1,700 square feet, and I have a full basement of
Okay.
maybe another 1,000 feet.
All right. The accessory dwelling unit shall be the only accessory dwelling unit within or on the same lot as a single-family dwelling.
Yes, it will be the only unit.
The accessory dwelling unit shall not alter the single-family character or appearance of the single-family dwelling or its conformity with the character of the neighborhood. No new entrance or exit to an accessory dwelling unit shall be constructed on the front or frontage side of the single-family dwelling. No new curb cut from the street shall be constructed, and the exterior design of the accessory dwelling unit shall be compatible with the single-family dwelling through architectural use of building form, scale, and construction materials.
Yes, I believe if you look at my plans, I've met all those criteria.
The owner of the property must occupy either the primary or accessory dwelling unit as the owner's principal place of residence. So you're
Yes.
gonna be occupying the first floor.
Yep,
The owner of the, the owner of the property shall provide the city of Nashua with a covenant for filing with the Hillsborough County Registry of Deeds along with the appropriate filing fees, and the covenant is there. You agree to file a
yeah,
covenant?
I would follow that, yes.
One additional off-street parking space is required above the minimum standard for a single-family house.
Okay, and as I said, I've provided 2 spaces for the ADU.
An interior door shall be provided between the primary dwelling unit and the accessory dwelling unit.
And the interior door will be at the top of the interior stairwell.
Okay? The single-family dwelling and the accessory dwelling unit shall not be separated in ownership, including condominium ownership.
I am the owner of the property, and I intend to be the owner of the property.
And then finally, the accessory dwelling unit shall only be associated with a single-family detached dwelling, shall not be associated with manufactured housing, as defined in RSA 674:31.
Yep, and this is a single-family detached home.
Okay, thank you for affirming that. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, ma'am.
you.
Anybody else to speak in favor of the application? Come, please come on up and give us your name and address.
My name is Nancy Durrett.
You can
and
pull that up, ma'am, so we can hear you for the record.
My name is Nancy Durrett, and I'm the abutter 20 Smithfield Terrace. And I've talked to Lynn a lot. I had some concerns initially. I was hoping she would be enclosing this stairway and making it look like it's part of the house. But she's assured me that she, with fencing and landscaping, shrubbery, et cetera, we could make it, she could make it look presentable and not interfere with the aesthetics of the neighborhood in my side yard, because it's very tight.
Okay.
So I'm not for or against it. I think it's a great idea. I was a little skeptical, but I'm feeling good about her positive desire to make it look good, and I think she can do that. So.
Okay, hold on for a minute. Any questions? Okay, thank you, ma'am. We just want to make sure there's no questions. Anybody else to speak in favor of this application? Anybody with any concerns or questions for this application? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Perry.
You know, from reviewing the application and, you know, being back on a site walk there on Smithfield Terrace, I was really comfortable with it, but I had missed the side staircase proposal. And so I guess I'm a bit struggling with that. You know, when we think of the language, we're not supposed to have a new entrance on the front. I think that's fine and appropriate language. In a way, this isn't an entrance on the front, but having a staircase being constructed on the side, which is now you're going to see from the front, I think that, you know, I struggle with whether that's meeting the spirit and the intent. So that's one thought. I certainly looking forward to hearing other opinions of that. And then I guess the other thought I have on the staircase is this application, I think, is very well detailed. I appreciate the thought that's gone into it, but the proposed staircase is kind of wide open. I guess if I were to approve this, I'd feel certainly more comfortable on having an architectural plan so everybody knows what they're going to get, including the abutters and, you know, other folks, because I think that's wide open now, and sometimes when things go to construction and contractors come and go, something ends up, and it, you know, you have a staircase and sometimes it looks good and sometimes it doesn't. So I'm more inclined to have that nailed down on the plan up front, but that's just where I'm at. I'm looking forward to hearing other opinions.
Mr. Lionel.
The staircase is the problem for me too, and it's that it significantly alters the appearance of the house to make it look like a multifamily house or an apartment building, which is contrary to the spirit and intent of the ordinance. You know, certainly, you know, turning the entire second floor into an ADU, and we've seen things like that before. This is the first application since I joined the board 2 years ago where the ADU was not being constructed for at least initial use by a family member. And the applicant is saying it's her intention to rent it out as an apartment. The law currently allows that, but that in conjunction with the appearance the staircase giving an appearance of a multifamily makes it difficult for me to support this.
Mr. Shaw?
I mean, I guess I've shared some of the same concerns about the stairwell and the kind of spirit and intent of that having it be something, well, that's an entrance on the side that still kind of ends up functioning like an entrance to the front of the structure. So, and I appreciate Mr. Lionel's point about kind of a stairwell like that can oftentimes, again, be associated with multi-units, and in this case, it really is, from one sense, trying to accomplish that. I don't think that we really can and should be considering whether or not this is going to be used by a family member or as some kind of rental income, because that was part of why the state law was changed, was to remove that requirement. So I don't think that plays in at all, and I think we have to be careful that we don't judge it on that. That I have no issue with. I just think, yeah, we haven't had that explicitly, and most people have still been thinking of these as kind of classic in-law units, but that was what changed however long ago that already has been now. But I am concerned about, I feel like the applicant intends very much to do this to make it look as kind of seamless and, the landscaping, hide it, and I even appreciate the fact that, trying to work with the direct abutter, who is going to be one of the most affected, obviously, by this. I've got my struggles too, so I'm not completely convinced one way or the other, but that's the part that everything else I'm not concerned about, but that's the one thing that still, I'd like to see what other thoughts are also.
I have no, just start off saying, I have no issues with the square footage on this unit. I don't think looking or observing this property from the street that one would know whether it's 750 or more square feet on the second floor. And I think, again, it makes sense, it's kind of what the footprint is on the top floor. The staircase, obviously, as I looked at it, I knew from looking at this, and the only other reasonable way to do this from the interior would be, again, inside the garage, but then now you're losing that spot. So, it's kind of weighing that thing is, if there's going to be an extra car, obviously there's no overnight parking in that neighborhood, but, would a car end up being parked, and I'm not saying that it would, but I'm saying, it's possible a car could end up parked on a lawn or whatever. So I think, I think it's noble that the applicant is saying, hey, that's going to be a spot, dedicated to that unit with a spot outside. We heard from the abutter, and it appears that the applicant and the abutter got together, and the applicant explained exactly what she was going to do. So I do appreciate the fact that, Mr. Correa, that we've had plans before where we don't know how big a deck is or where the stairs are going. I believe in this case, the stairway has to be in a specific spot, and, it's not like the applicant's saying that I need to build it's not gonna be a 4 or 5 foot wide stairway in this monstrosity off the side of the house. I think that she's got a beautiful home. I looked at it. I think, again, I know that she's gonna wanna blend in now. It doesn't mean that, obviously that it can't end up being something else. I just have full confidence that with this applicant, was very detailed. She took a lot of time to go through the special conditions, and it sounded very specific that she knew exactly what she was doing and what she wanted. And I think she took care to make sure that the neighbor was satisfied with what she's going to do. So I'm looking at it as losing that ability if the stairway could obviously go in the garage, but then you're losing that parking spot. There's no way you're going to be able to use that garage. This is a newer home, and I know that the garage sizes are not what they used to be in the older homes. So I don't believe there's enough room to put the staircase in the garage. So with that, The other issue is, you know, obviously, that I think, I don't know, you know, I was thinking about this, whether if this was a first floor unit, whether or not it'd be as out there, right? Because we're gonna see a staircase going to the second floor, as if this was a first floor unit and the door was on the side. I don't know if we would be, or if I would be saying, you know, looking at it and go, wow, there's a staircase going to the second floor. It wouldn't, to me, you know, I wouldn't look twice. So I understand being on the second floor, it kinda sticks out a little bit more. But I don't know if there's really any other choice in this case, where the entrance is, and obviously, there's gotta be a second entrance. The only other choice would be off the back of the house, and I don't know how practical that would be, again, because now you're, you know, I don't know the construction of the back of the house, so.
Just a comment that the whole point of the ADU and the interior door is access to the ADU through the, you know, the primary structure. There's nothing about requiring an exterior door. And it's just the applicant wants to do that, okay, but there's not a requirement for
No, I understand, and I don't know if at this point, for me personally, it's more of a sense of, not that I'm saying that this is the reason why I would vote for it, but almost like a safety issue, like being on the second floor, you know, and only having that one exit. I don't know, you know, for me, I don't know if I would feel better if there was that second exit on the side. So, go ahead, Mr. Curry.
Well, you know, I guess we don't, maybe if someone sees where that door is to connect the two units, because to me, that door, which must be there, is one of the exits, you know, so even though it normally wouldn't be used, it's supposed to be there for you, so we got an exit with that by requirement.
Right.
And I agree that, you know, at 21 and a half by 19 feet, I mean, this whole Smithfield Terrace, I believe it was a cluster zone to begin with, so things are skinny down. So that's a small two-car garage to begin with, but, you know, I mean, on the other side of that garage, on the right-hand bay, you know, is a closet, you know, maybe that could be moved over, some closet space skinny down. I mean, I don't know, I don't wanna design it for them, but has there been a hard look at another staircase? I mean, I think there's been, sounds like they look at it. I'm not sure if there's been a hard look, but with the idea of there can't be any other staircase, I would say you could put a staircase wherever you want. I mean, carpenters will, you know, and architects, you know, will do that. I'd just say, is it a matter of, you know, practical, you know, is it reasonable with the economics of the situation to have the staircase on the inside or not? Just a few thoughts.
Yeah.
And I don't, a couple other things while I'm speaking, as I concur with Mr. Shaw, I think Ms. Lancaster's proposal is right in line with the revised zoning laws, which is somebody who's looking to remain in their house and therefore create an ADU. So, you know, the economics, I don't think play in anything to me. I think this is right in line with what the new ADU is, and just wanted to make sure that I have that out on the record. Concur with you on that.
Mr. Minkara.
Just to go to a different direction, and I guess the reason why I asked about the square footage, I struggle in looking at this as to whether or not the accessory dwelling unit is really incidental to the principal use, whether it's really subordinate. There's about a 30% difference between the first and the second floor, and just in looking at them, you know, at what point is it a two-family versus an accessory dwelling unit? At what point is the secondary unit such a significant percentage of the home that it really is no longer accessory, it's no longer incidental? So my issue is less the staircase, although that's a part of it, but it's just, if it's 50-50, does it matter? Does it matter if the first and second, you know, if both units are equal? You know, so I struggle with it. I don't know if that's an issue that you've looked at.
And I don't know if I have the numbers right, but I think the applicant testified that that her living area on the first floor was
I think it was 1,600 or so square feet and 1,000.
I struggle with that too, because they're just in looking at the floor plans, the second floor is clearly not 50% smaller than the first. So looking
It's
at
like an open
There's an open area, but you also have dwelling, on the second floor, you have dwelling space above the garage. So I mean, just in looking at them, it's not, so when I went and looked at the assessing records, which I realize aren't perfect, the square footage on the first floor, according to the assessing records, is 1,240. And that, just again, proportionally, that looks about right. The house, just in thinking about the size of how big is the house, yeah, that probably makes sense. 2,000 plus square foot home.
There used to be a requirement in the ordinance that the ADUs couldn't exceed 30% of the size of the home, and that was taken out, so there is no longer a percentage, but that used to be an issue. Just FYI.
Ms. McFadden?
I too struggle with the staircase, and I'm not an architect, I'm not a builder, I'm not an engineer, so I don't understand, I guess, why if you have an interior staircase that you may or may not go, you said you needed to use to access, or the owner said she needed to use to access a specific room, which then made the ADU 845 instead of 750, why that staircase couldn't be used to access the ADU itself. And then when you look at the one photograph, there is, I want to find the photograph because we haven't talked about that at all. It was mentioned a little bit, but not spoken about, the shed and then a deck. It's where on the first level, on this picture, it says there's a shed and then a patio deck and then the staircase. So the shed would be a barrier and the patio deck also, but I still wonder, and I still have to get used to the new rules versus the old rules. I understand why ADUs came into existence, and it's been amended and changed, so now I have to wrap my brain around that, but the staircase is what makes it almost more conducive to a second family and an apartment as opposed to a one family and an ADU, and that's where I struggle.
Mr. Shaw?
I just wanted, I think, try to clarify your first
Would
point
you
there.
please?
Because I think the applicant, her issue was that, I think this just has to do with basically like the floor plan of the first floor. That interior stairway just kind of comes into the middle of her living space, and I think there's, it looks, and you start looking at the first floor, it doesn't seem like there's any good way to kind of like seal off, like have a private kind of entrance without basically a lot of shared space. So I think that was the main thing with that. I mean, I think it's just, it seems like in many ways, looking at, you know, kind of scanning these plans and all, it just seems that the construction and the existing floor plan doesn't work well either for using that existing stairwell as a way to kind of have some kind of private, you know, separated entrance type of stuff. And it doesn't seem like there's a good way to add a second stairwell interior-wise without some major encroachment. And that, I mean, that could be into the master bedroom closet. It could be, you know, in that garage bay like was talked about, or it could be off the back of the house, but I have a feeling that might be not, because that would probably be right in front of like the master bedroom. I see lots of problems with all this, but then it all kind of keeps coming back to, again, kind of just more the general argument about where does this kind of feel like it's just trying to really make a two-family unit house out of a single family, trying to stay within the bounds of the special exception, but I think there are some real struggles here with this, and so I think it just seems like the way this house is built and laid out isn't lending itself to an easy solution.
Thank you for that. I guess it straddles the boundaries.
Ms. Flores?
I concur with my colleagues with everything. At this point, I don't really have anything more to add. Stairwell is an issue.
Mr. Shaw?
I mean, the one thing I'm wondering is, and, you know, Mr. Courier was probably ready to kind of question this, I mean, sometimes we'll talk about, do we possibly consider tabling this case, giving the applicant a chance to either go back for like the architectural drawings, at least at a minimum, like Mr. Courier was talking about with that stairwell, or maybe also just try to really look a little harder at what might be a way of more truly kind of diminishing or even removing the appearance of an exterior stairwell. I would be open to giving the applicants those opportunities, because to me, it certainly also feels like this is the big hang-up for us, and so I don't know if you want to take a motion to reopen and ask the applicant to come back up, or if we're not that interested in tabling.
Mr. Curry?
I just want to say, I think that's a great suggestion by Mr. Shaw, because that, I think, would allow the applicant an opportunity to explore a little further. But there's one other thing I wanted to say, you know, about Jay's point. I appreciate Mr. McCara looking into the details of that. I think, I could be wrong, but the dropping of the 30% and the adoption of the 750 was, I think, in consideration of smaller structures where the 30%, you know, the city didn't want to have like kind of like this forced requirement of a real small unit. So when you end up with a home like this, which say isn't really a large one, then that ADU can grow somewhat considerably beyond the 30%. So while you make a very valid point with that, I guess I wasn't, you know, the rather large percentage of the proposed second unit wasn't so much a hang-up for me, as long as it's kind of, you know, enclosed within the existing house. And again, I think that's why it shifted from 30% to the 750, but I don't know that for sure. But I just wanted to throw that out, that kind of highlight what Mr. Falk said. It went from the 30% to the 750 rather recently.
I would just add that, you know, if it were the 750, that wouldn't trouble me. It's that we're being asked for a
Go
variance
beyond it,
to go
sure,
beyond it.
absolutely, yep.
So asking for more.
Okay, so I'm in agreement. If we want to table this, that's fine. Before we make that motion, yeah, we'll talk to the applicant first. We'll open up a hearing again, just to get a date certain. Is there going to be anything specific that we are going to request? I just want to talk about that before it comes up, that you would be requesting. So I know that there was mention about, you know, obviously you want to see more, I think, more to scale what the stairs are. I mean, are you looking for a better view or a drawing that shows us more kind of like a street view, or?
Well, what we have now is a one-dimensional top-down view with an X and Y of a staircase. What I'd be looking for is something that, you know, goes along with, you know, not an architectural drawing, but just say, well, here's a picture, here's what the side of the house is going to look like. Here's the roof line, the windows. I mean, it could even be just a pencil sketch, but this is roof line, door is here, opens here, window, you know, et cetera. And also a walkway. I mean, while we're on that subject, if the door's coming out, is just kind of curious, is the proposal to be on flagstones, on concrete, or asphalt? Or I think I didn't ask the applicant, but is there just grass there now, and what will be there, so it's, you know, not just clear to me anyway. I think it would be clear to all of us.
Is there anything else that we right now would be asking to consider? Just want to make sure. So you're looking for kind of a three-dimensional sketch or drawing to give us a better idea of what that may look like. And then I think I also heard whether or not there are still any other options to consider, right? So that covers it, right?
the option of an interior staircase in some
To explore that a little bit more and, okay, so, anybody want to make a motion to, go ahead.
See, I make a motion on behalf of Linda Lancaster at 18 Smithfield Terrace to table, and this is a motion to
Oh,
table.
excuse me, Ms. Curry, we're going to make a motion to have it.
Reopen the public
Oh,
hearing.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So,
You're right.
so I'll make a motion, I'm sorry, and I was ahead, it's my fault. So I'm gonna make a motion to reopen the public hearing, to have the applicant come up to specifically, I'm going to ask her specifically when she would like to come back with a date, and just explain to her exactly, again, reiterate what we're looking for. So my motion is to open the public hearing.
Second, but I think even just to ask the applicant if she wants this table, because we certainly could still just vote on an
Right,
act with what's been presented. So I don't think we are trying to force the applicant to do anything, it's just to give her an opportunity.
Yes. Okay, so seconded by Mr. Shaw. All in favor? That's 5-0. Ma'am, could you come back up? Just give us your name and address again, just for the record.
My name is Linda Lancaster, 18 Smithfield Terrace.
So you've been following what's been going on?
Yeah,
So-
I actually have the house plans for, the dimensional drawings that the architect did, and I got them from the city. So I actually have scale drawings, and I can put, what I'm talking about on that
So-
side.
So ma'am, the first question is, would you like us to table it, or do you want
Yes,
us?
please.
Okay, all right, and then the second question will be, what are the available dates
The
now?
next meeting is February 12th. The one after
3
that is,
weeks out. That's 3 weeks out.
we have an extra week, which is good for her. And then the next meeting after that is February 26th.
Is that enough time?
Yeah, February 12th should be sufficient.
Okay. All right, and then, so ma'am, you've also heard us, just gonna reiterate, we're kind of looking more of a three-dimensional type drawing, and to explore again the other alternatives for the staircase, and just ask you to come back with kind of more detail on, this is what I can do, this is what I can't do, whatever you want to bring us back at that time, okay?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, I'll let you know if I can answer.
So I need to give you additional drawings and documents. When do I have to have those drawings, and who do I give them to?
You can give them to me. I'd like to send them out in the next package, which is gonna go in the mail on February 5th.
So
Then
if-
maybe I'll go to
So
the
you want to
meeting
go,
after
you want to
that.
push it out some more?
Yes,
And
please.
if you need to push it out more, that's fine, but this is the time to tell us, so.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna go
February
26th.
26th.
to February 26th.
I need everything before the 21st.
Okay,
No, I'm sorry, before the 19th.
I'm sorry, and what,
Before the
February.
19th. We mail it out 7 days before the meeting,
so
so.
by the 19th.
Before the 19th, yes.
And you're in
In the planning department.
the planning department, okay. Thank you,
Good, ma'am, thank you very much.
thank you.
All right, so I'm going to close the public hearing, reopen the public meeting. All right, so, with that, I'll make a motion to table, case number 1 to a date certain of February 26th. We're just gonna table.
Yeah, we're gonna table the whole thing, so it doesn't
So
matter.
we're gonna make a motion to table case number 1 for Linda Lancaster at 6 Smithfield Terrace.
The whole case.
The whole case will be reopened in the public hearing on February 26th. Seconded by Mr. Shaw. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's 5-0. All right, ma'am, we're all set. If you have any questions, call Mr. Falk. With that, I'll close case number 1 and open case number 2. Case number 2 is I will apologize if I mispronounce the name. The owner is Menahont Realty North LLC. Applicant's Cliff Conti, Classic Signs, 169 Kingsley Street. Description is Menahont Realty North LLC owner, Cliff Conti, Classic Signs, applicant, 169 Kingsley Street, sheet 87, lot 218, requesting the following variances. 1 from Land Use Code, section 190, 102, to encroach 15 feet into the 25-foot required setback from the intersection of St. Joseph's Drive and Kingsley Street for a proposed ground identification sign, and 2, from Land Use Code Section 190-108, Section C, subsection 8, to allow a 12-square-foot wall sign on front of a building, 6 square feet allowed, where all signs are allowed in lieu of a ground identification sign in residential zoning districts. It's in our RB zoning district. Welcome, and can I have your name, please, and address?
My name is Cliff Conti from Classic Signs. I live at 11 Copp Street, 11 Copp Street in Nashua.
And I'm Jay Dakota. I'm the owner of the building at 169 Kinsley Street.
Okay, just tell us what you want to do. Short.
Just saw a few more photos. That I took when I placed the signs for this hearing. Do you want me to read all the points?
Yeah, just tell us, yes.
Go ahead and read right through 'em.
Yeah, just give us, we've read your application, but if you have some specific issues that, or points you want to make.
Just the specific, okay. I do feel that we've looked at all this, and Dr. Dakota, you know, when we looked at all the setbacks for this sign, it puts it right in the middle of the bushes, right in front of the property. And all things considered, you have to turn into St. Joseph's Drive to get into the property. The entrance is the parking is all in the back there. So if you miss the building, you can't go back in. There's a handicap ramp there and just a single drive coming out. So you can't take a left back into the property because it's a one-way coming out onto Kinsley. So we looked at all the things considered, and we really want to put the sign back where the one that's been there for 30 years, hasn't bothered anybody. We just want to put it in that spot right there. It's a different sign. He put a temporary cover on that, on the existing sign, and now he wants to identify himself with the new identification that he has, graphics and logo. So again, all things considered, we looked at what's in the neighborhood. All the way up and down the street, you can see almost everybody's right on the street. We're going to do the setback the way it is now, which is about 10 feet from the sidewalk. And that's where we'd like to put it, right where that is right there. And if you look down the street, all the other signs are much closer. If you're at St. Joe's and you are looking across to get over to St. Joseph's Drive, you want to see that sign so that you don't pass the property. Aesthetically, you have, like I said, it's been there for 30 years. We don't want to remove any landscaping and get rid of all the trees that would be necessary. It puts it right in a very awkward spot. The sign is allowed. We're not, in this case, the second thing we're asking for is to put a sign on the wall. One sign is allowed in this zone, one or the other, either the wall sign or a freestanding sign. We're asking for one of each. One to go on the front of the building. You can see it's blue on blue. The logo is on top of that. It's just good identification so that it doesn't look like a house after you've passed it. And from St. Joseph's, it'd be nice to have some identification. The sign that we're proposing freestanding will be sideways to St. Joseph's, so you're not going to really see them, particularly at the same exact time. You'll see them for a minute there, but for the most part, this sign will be angled like the one currently. It'll be blank on the back. So consideration for the neighbor. I have photos from his driveway and from exiting Dr. Dakota's. In either case, it doesn't block your view down Kinsley to get out of the property. The closer we get to where it would be allowed by the setback puts it closer to the neighbor's property. So by moving it where we want to put it, it keeps it another 15 feet away from his property, and it's blank on the back. So he's not looking at advertising or anything like that. It's just a real, try to consider all the again, it's blank on the back. I don't feel that it's in against the spirit of the ordinance, because it will it's going to avoid the removing of the landscaping blocking the front of the building, allowing 2 signs. It's a commercial property. All the way up and down, this whole area is zone residential, but it's all medical use, all the way up down. All we're really looking for relief is to move it right where the sign is now. I don't know, let's see, in the one-way nature of Kinsley Street, the placement of the existing sign, the use of the property as a medical facility, the one-way only exit of the driveway to Kinsley Street, and the need to see the facility while approaching to facilitate a turn on St. Joseph's Drive to the entrance of the property. Visitors really need to see that directional so that they take a left on St. Joseph's. And if it's in the middle of the property, you naturally go right past the sign and trying to take a left. So we're just trying to make a better appearance, not block the building, and just aesthetically. Yeah, sure.
I think Mr. Conti expressed it well.
Just have your name and address, please. sir.
Jay Dakota at 169 Kinsley Street. We actually made a demo sign, and we put it at the existing space where the sign currently is. We moved it to where the setback requirement is, and it just didn't look balanced. It's too close to the structure. It's in, as Cliff said, it's into the landscaping, and it really isn't visible as you're coming down Kinsley, and they come down there fairly quickly. And the point of the second sign is, as you go by, then you confirm, yes, that's the Dakota office building. Aesthetically, I think it's a beautiful sign. We've upgraded the property. We're trying to make it aesthetically beautiful, functional, and balanced. And I think the original location, again, where Dr. Goldberg was for 30 years, I think they had it. We're just looking to do the same thing. So would hope you'd consider that.
Mr. Courier.
What's the proposal, if any, for lighting on the freestanding sign and the wall sign?
And correct me if I'm wrong, wall sign, there'll be no lighting. The freestanding sign, it'll be a shaded downward light that just illuminates the light. The sign, excuse me, illuminates the sign.
Thank you. The other question I have is, I don't think there ever was a sidewalk in front of this property. There's a sidewalk, some sidewalks on this side of the street up and down. Is that kind of like strip where a sidewalk could be? Do you know if there's any plan for one to go in, or no plan, or have any?
I have no idea if there's any plan to put a sidewalk. There's no plan on my part to put a sidewalk there. And I don't think that it would make sense from the town's perspective there, based on the neighbors beyond me. So I don't, not that I know of.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lionel.
Just to add to Mr. Courier's question, typically the city has like a 9-foot right-of-way that they could put a sidewalk in. Do you know if your property deed specifies that? It's not really important, I'm just curious.
I believe it does, and I again, based on the existing sign that's there, I think you do have that 9 feet between.
Actually, the sort of question I did have was, so if I'm driving down Kinsley Street and I want to find your office, how do I know that I need to turn onto St. Joseph Drive to get into the parking lot? Or
So, as a new patient, first time visiting, we express that to them. We tell them where to come, turn right before the sign. And if you've not spoken to us, then sometimes people end up going around and coming back.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Which is what we're trying to avoid.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Correa?
Yeah, just, maybe you'd mention this, how long have you been operating from this building?
Less than a year.
Oh, and then there was somebody else there?
There was an
from-
endodontist there, another dentist for about 30 years.
30 years, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mr. Shaw?
What's the square footage of the existing sign and the new proposed sign?
I'll leave that to you.
Well, what we're proposing is an ID sign, a medical ID sign, which is essentially 12 square feet is allowed and, for an ID sign for a medical building.
I mean the ground sign itself.
It's like 4 by 6 feet right now, 24 feet. Yeah.
You mean the existing one there?
Existing.
The existing versus the new one.
So the existing sign that I have is a temporary sign that we put up when we bought the building, just to fit right over the sign that was there when I did buy it. Whatever it is, I don't know.
Yeah, they're allowed, it's allowed 12 square feet for, is that right?
Maybe-
Got it, right?
Let me ask Mr. Falk. So what is the allowed square footage?
Allowed 12 square feet for an identification sign.
Yeah.
Like with us, we had several discussions with Mr. Conti about the size of the sign. The height's okay, you know, the setback they're in for the variance. The area of the sign, you know, below the word orthodontics, there's really no text there or anything besides the address, and we don't really classify the address as really advertising. We want that there for emergency purposes and just general site identification. So we had the size as the, you know, just below the word orthodontics and up, and that met the 12 square feet. You know, if you look at like, a good example is the, well, I won't name the auto dealership, but there's a auto dealership down in Graham Drive that has a big monolithic, big sign, and it's just the one word on the top that says the name of the car brand, but below it is this big kind of skirt that fits around the two poles. And if you look at the whole thing, it looks rather large, but the text on it is small. And we just counted that text area, like put a box around that text area. So that's all we did with this one.
We put a physical divider. We put a raised, Marcia, we talked about putting a raised physical divider to separate what constitutes the sign versus the base, the pole. We don't like to show skinny poles sometimes, and so, in the nature of this being the one-way street, we could do the shape of the sign could be a little unique, because it didn't have to be symmetrical, because you're only looking at it from one side, so.
Any other questions? Just before we move forward, Mr. Falk, can you just comment real quickly? I know it wasn't really a big question, but we were talking about sidewalks and property lines, but the sign is still within the property boundaries. It's just, right, so you can just explain that real quickly so we all understand.
Okay. The plan that the applicant submitted, which is this one, it kind of shows like as a survey. There's this darker, thicker line that says property line. If you follow that around the property, you'll see 10 feet away from that, you'll see a dimension mark, and you'll see where the sign is at the proposed location 10 feet away. However, the pavement of Kinsley Street is this further dashed line below the property line. So there's going to be about 10 feet, 9 or 10 feet of what's called swale area, so to speak, before the property line. So it looks like the sign itself will be about approximately 20 feet from the pavement, but it's 10 feet away from the property line. You guys confirm that that's okay. I believe I'm reading it correctly, but. So there is an area, and it's shown in this picture with those stones on the ground. It shows the pavement. The property line is about 9, 10
I
feet
think this
past
drawing
that.
shows 6 foot. If you kind of look sideways, I think that's a 6. And where the arrows are between the edge of pavement and the property line.
Yeah.
So it's still 16 feet back.
16 feet back.
In that direction. It looks like it's probably, I don't think it's measured on the other. It looks like in the St. Joseph Drive side, it probably is the 20 feet.
Right.
So again, the attempt is to put the sign where it now is. Um, Just replace it, one for one, really. If the zoning hadn't changed, he'd be allowed to do that with just a permit. But something changed in the residential zone over time, which put the 25-foot setback from side street. So, sign was up legal in the first place, and we're just trying to replace it, but because things changed, the nature of the sign is a little different, then we addressed the whole project by coming to the board.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we're all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else like to speak in favor of the application? Come on up, sir. Give us your name and address.
I'm Chris Texera. I'm 13 Bel Air Ave. I'm a butter to the property. So I'm in favor of the sign. I think the property and the work that he's done in that location really looks excellent, you know, and the landscaping looks very good. So I just wanted to say I have no issues with it whatsoever.
Excuse me, sir, number 13, right?
13 Bel Air, yeah.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much for coming. Okay, with that, there is nobody else left in the audience, so I will close case number 2 and open, I will close the public hearing and open the public meeting. I apologize. Mr. Currier.
I'm supportive of both requests, both signs. Couple thoughts. I think the applicant spent, some energy on sign placement for his, testimony about that. And so his proposed sign is in the same location as this sign, which has been there, we assume, for 30 years. So I'm good with that. I mean, it's bigger. I would be concerned if Kinsley Street wasn't one way, but obviously it is. And I'm right there with the testimony of when you pull out, there's not a sidewalk you're contending with for pedestrians, and you only need to look right. The sign's on your left. So freestanding sign, I'm fine with that. I think it would be good to just, clarify that it's an externally lit sign for their testimony. And then the sign on the building, when I saw the application, I thought, geez, 12's, that's a lot. But when you look at the picture of it, I think it's tucked in nice and it's not lighted. So I'm fine with that one also, and I think it meets the 5 criteria as presented. That's just me.
Mr. Shaw.
I concur with Mr. Currier.
Solano.
As do I.
Yes. Ms. McKay.
Ditto.
Ms. Flores.
Ditto.
Ms. Vancouver.
I agree, and I would just add that it's consistent with the signage that you see for other non-residential uses in the area. And I would also add, I think there's a safety factor, and people being able to clearly see the business where they're supposed to turn. Speeds can be pretty high on Kinsley.
Okay. Anybody like to make a motion? Mr. Currier.
Make a motion on behalf of Menahart Realty North LLC. As the owner, the applicant is Cliff Connie, Classic Signs. And again, the address is 169 Kinsley Street. And the request for the area variance is before us tonight. Number 1 is from Land Use Code 190-102 to encroach 15 feet into the 25-foot required setback from the intersection of St. Joseph's Drives and Kinsley Street, and that's for the proposed ground sign. And number 2 is from Land Use Code 190-108, paragraph C, subsection 8, and that's to allow a 12-square-foot wall sign on the front of the building, where 6 square feet is allowed in lieu of ground identification signs in residential zoning districts. So I make a motion to approve both these area requests. I think the board finds that the variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property. And again, per our discussion, the applicant's proposed use of the property is really a continuum of what's been, 30-plus years of a physician's office or medical office, maybe to be more generic. And of course, some of the special conditions of the property discussed tonight is that while it is the RB zone, there's a stretch of homes on this side, which for many years have all been and continue to be businesses and all have like signs of what's being proposed tonight. So given those special conditions, I think the board finds that it's within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. I think the board finds it'll not adversely affect the property values of surrounding parcels. The board has had some testimony that the general upkeep of the property is improved property values from an abutter. I think the board finds it's not contrary to public interest and substantial justice is served. I'd just like to add as special conditions per the testimony that the proposed ground sign would be externally illuminated and the wall sign would not be illuminated. And with that, I make a motion to approve.
Seconded by Mr. Shaw. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? That's 5-0. Congratulations, your motion passes. Good luck. Thank you. With that, I'll close case number 2. All right, we have some meeting minutes from January 8th. Does anybody have any?
I see no amendments.
No? Nothing? Okay. All right, so seeing none.
Oh, I was gonna say,
Go
I was
ahead.
gonna make a motion to approve the minutes from January 8th as presented.
Seconded by Mr. Shaw. Any discussion? All in favor? So the meeting minutes pass. There is no,
agenda for the next meeting because we have not received any applications.
You have no applications at all?
Oh. Oh, so there might be none as a week from now when you need to send things out? No, 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, you won't worry about that, but right now, there are no applications
Okay.
for the February 12th meeting.
And I won't
Doesn't
be-
happen very often.
If you do have a meeting, I won't be here.
Neither will I.
okay.
I'm so-
All right, and let's, so we'll move on to the voting of the officers. So we made a vote the previous meeting, and by our bylaws to ratify that, we need to take a second vote, or a motion and a vote. Would anybody like to make a motion? Mr. Currier?
I'll make a motion repeating what we discussed last week. The officer slate for this year would be Mr. J.P. Boucher as chair, Mr. Steve Lionel as vice chair, and Ms. Mary Ellen McKay as clerk.
Second by Mr. Shaw. Any discussion on that? All in favor? That's 5-0. Congratulations, everybody.
Yourself included.
All right, thank you. Is there any other business? Anybody like to make a motion? Mr. Shaw?
Move to adjourn?
Motions to adjourn
Seconded?
by Mr. Currier.
7:42.
All in favor? 5? Okay, we're adjourned at 7:42. Thank you.